Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Neid, and I am joined by a good friend of mine, Jordan Wong. Jordan and I have known each other for many, many years. Jordan was actually competing and beating my ass at my first ever powerlifting meet with his super long, flowy hair and chubby Asian panda body. Now he is a chiseled god and an all-time world record holder. Jordan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing great, doing great.
That
We
first was Tampa, right? SPF Outlaws.
No, it was actually a meet in Orlando, in a gym in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the one thing I remember about that meet is there was a very large African American pastor who pulled like 800 pounds.
James Jacobs.
Yeah, and he was just yelling and like boom. And he like had this huge like routine before he
Yeah.
deadlifted.
I thought your first meet was in Tampa. The
No,
SPF.
that Orlando was my first meet. The SPF Outlaws was my second meet.
So, damn, okay. So I didn't remember you from the first one, just the second one.
Yeah, because
I,
I did that meet with Jenny and Jessica, and that was a lot of fun. That was my first meet in Raps. Thought it was
Mhm.
so cool.
Shit. Yeah, damn, I didn't put that together. I thought it was the SPF one because the Outlaws was the forum. So Tom the Tampa Barbell.
Yep.
He was behind it. Yeah. All right.
Is Tommy still around?
Oh, I think he's dead. Like I
No.
don't like I don't
Like
uh,
actually,
oh yeah, I mean maybe I shouldn't have said that because I might be wrong. Someone died, but Tampa Barbell's definitely not around.
well,
But I
Tommy
think someone
Fannon's
did
family,
die.
if he did in fact pass, rest in peace.
If he didn't, my bad.
That's
It's
okay.
okay.
I mean, worse things have been said on the internet, so
Yeah.
no harm done. So I wanted to have you on mostly because it's always nice to catch up, but also to kind of ask you what you've been doing on the powerlifting side. You just got, coming back from an injury right now, and what's been happening.
So from an athlete perspective, I competed at the American Pro, tore my pec tendon off the bone, got it reattached 3 weeks later. So that was November 16th. We're about 14 weeks from Thursday. This Thursday will be so 2 days from now, 14
Mhm.
weeks post-op. And the rehab process is going pretty well. I benched 180 pounds for 4 yesterday. I believe I should be just now probably pressing like a five pound dumbbell. So like we're doing pretty good there.
Being aggressive with the rehab.
Yeah, and then still able to train my lower body pretty effectively. Um,
Mhm.
in the beginning, couldn't really go as hard because I was still pretty limited with what I could do with my arm. Just like I was always in the sling
Yep.
and just pushing it just didn't feel good. But I'm pretty close to being back to real training again, I think.
And you're
Like,
working with Seth, right? Seth
yes,
Albersworth.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
He's someone who I'd like to have on the podcast, but I've never heard him on a podcast before.
He was on Table Talk and he was on with Justin Harris.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to listen to that. I'll reach out. Canadian boy, buddy of mine, so be
Yeah.
good.
Both of you and
Uh,
him are competing. You guys are my guys.
we just have a
There's some
soft
film.
spot for people who enjoy cold.
Yeah.
What about on the gym side? You own Showcase Strength and Conditioning in Northport?
Yeah. So Showcase Strength and Fitness, Northport, Florida. We so good news. It looks like my expansion's finally going to happen in November.
Amazing.
Yeah, the spot I wanted to get into last November fell through at literally the last 15 minutes. So like there's a tenant in there that was up for a renewal, and the real estate company, the lady helping me out, said he didn't want to renew. Then he signed it 15 minutes before the deadline. I was all ready to go, and then my rent got raised like almost 100% basically, probably about
Holy
80%
shit.
my current place because he knew he had me by the balls. So I'm just toughing this year out, and then I can go over there November 1st, assuming the spot is what I like, and I think it is. So I'm like 90% sure I'll be there. But the lease agreement she already drew up for me,
How many additional square feet would that be?
2,200. So
Wow.
Yeah, I'm at 3,500 now. You were there with
Yep.
Olivia.
So pretty
And then,
much it'll be like a third bigger.
mhm.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. You started, so for those who've never been to Jordan's gym, it's essentially like two equal sized spaces with a wall blown out.
Yeah.
And you started in one of them,
Mhm.
then had the roof cave in and got in the other one as well. Was that all around the same time?
No, actually. So when I originally went there to get in, the one unit was 1750 square foot.
Okay.
And I originally wanted to just have a kind of like a personal training studio with some stuff for like my friends. Cause like
Mhm.
my place, my commercial gym went bankrupt and I was just in like panic rush mode. And then Joe Millswoggle was the one who got me in and met with people. He's like, why don't you just take two of them and just make a real gym? And I was like, I don't know, man. Seems pretty scary. And he's like, no, just do it. And then I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
So I had to wait a few months for that tenant to leave, and then we
Mhm.
just took a hole out of the wall, and then I've had 3,500 square foot pretty much the whole lease except for a couple months. But when
And
the
you've
roof,
added quite a bit. Like, I mean, it started as just powerlifting. Now you've got a great selection of bodybuilding equipment in there too.
yeah,
Has that population kind of grown with the gym? Like, have you added a bunch of bodybuilders? And
we honestly don't really have many real bodybuilders in the area. There's so Sarasota, which is about 40 minutes north. They had some guys up there come down here and take over a commercial gym, and they made it
Mhm.
more of a bodybuilding style gym.
Okay,
So they're doing pretty good. But it's also one of those gyms where just the feedback I get from some people, like people either hate it or love it. Because the
gotcha.
people that really fall into like the competitive thing, like the competitive bodybuilders seem to come from Sarasota. So they travel down to work out there. But the other half is more of like the kids that just like that type of environment.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
a lot of them seem to have like memberships at 2 to 3 different gyms. So
That's pretty common down here, actually. Like, I mean, even us, like, because we just moved out to Houston. I have two gym memberships now.
yeah.
Because the gym that we're training at, mostly Roman Empire, is like 20 minutes away. So if I just want to go do cardio, I'm not going to drive 20 minutes to go do cardio, 20 minutes back, and then just to drive back to go train later in the day.
Yeah.
So there's like a small mom and pop gym 10 minutes away. So we just go out there. Um, Competitively, once you're all rehabbed, what's happening?
So I want to do my own meet in December, the King of the Platform. I want
I see you
to,
there.
yeah, I want to do that. One because it's right down the street,
Yeah.
and I like the idea of just doing a meet with like all my friends. So there's two sides of it. There's a side of me that's like I want it to be like a good big meet. I come back, hit some PRs or whatever. But there's also the side of me that knows that it might not be the meet because I am coming back from like my first surgery, major pec tear, juggling some business stuff,
Mhm.
expanding a gym the month before. So like who knows what kind of like space it's going to be in. I think I can do it, like the whole PR side, but I also can't predict how my pec is going to hold up in terms of like rushing the train. Like we're being pretty aggressive, but it's not being stupid aggressive. So I
Right.
don't want to put myself in that position. And I just like that pretty much everyone from my gym that competes is probably going to do that meet.
Mhm.
I've done my last 3 or 4 meets. I've had groups of people from my gym just travel to come watch. So
Awesome.
like, I don't spend the money to come watch me. Like, just drive down the street. We'll just do it together. So
Yeah. Dude,
yeah.
I love that. And I think, okay, so that topic brings us in. I wanted to do a little bit of a Q&A episode because when it comes to powerlifting, you and I have been through a lot of different like eras of powerlifting, right? We
Mhm.
were through it at the beginning when it was mostly multiply. And then we went through the heyday of like raw powerlifting at its finest, Dan Green, Jay Nira, Cade, Kevin Oak, like those guys. And then now into this new kind of like more so Instagram lifting
Mhm.
is the thing now. And I wanted to bring you in and offer a different perspective because I had Dave Osborne on. We did more like of a technical Q&A, but there's a few questions in here that I think are really interesting given where we are now culturally in the sport, if you want to use the word culture.
Mhm.
The first question we got was how to come back after a major injury. Because you've had two now, lower back, and your pec.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've had knee surgeries and torn muscles and stuff like that. So, and I mean, I did have to take 2 years off, so that was a thing. But for
Yeah.
you, what's the process that you go through when you have that I'm fucked moment?
So, like you said, I've had a couple of them, right? So, I guess if we go back to 2015 for the back injury,
Hmm.
that was my biggest unfucked moment. So, like, so the first time I broke the 220 squat record, I was like on that big high. I was like, shit, I'm awesome. I'm going to be so good. And then, like, 2 months later, I'm not even training hard anymore. Like, I don't have to meet, I'm kind of coasting. I was about to start prep for Boss of Bosses.
Hmm.
And I just woke up one morning and I couldn't get out of bed. Like my leg was numb, my foot was numb. I had drop foot already, and I
This was just overnight, right? Like you went to
overnight, yeah,
bed, you were fine, and then you woke up
yeah,
like, fuck.
yeah. There's no warning signs or anything, and like the only warning sign looking back, I worked at a restaurant at the time, and I just remember taking a step and just feeling like a weird, awkward feeling in my lower back, like ass cheek area. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. And I just went on with my night. So I don't know if it was related or not, but I woke up and I could not get dressed. I couldn't do shit. Finally got to my chiropractor, who was not like your run of the mill chiropractors, like the ones that we
Mhm.
try. And he was just up front. He's good. I can't do anything for you. He's like, I'll write you a script for an MRI. If I try to work on it right now, that'll be irresponsible. So he wrote me a script for the MRI. I went and got it, and it came back with L4, L5, L5S1, compression fracture in the sacrum, severe spinal stenosis, and maybe something else. It's been a while, but for those, it was tough. Like I was like begging for back surgery
Right.
because it was that bad. And then fortunately, I was close with Brian Carroll,
Hmm.
and he just came back from his, and he told me, "Don't do that. Let's get you like on a call with Stuart McGill." And then Stu basically just had a conversation with me on Zoom, or actually at the time it was Skype, and we evaluated some everyday movements. But really, when it came down to it, him and Brian just said, "Hey, don't get surgery, just rest." And that's all I did. Like I would love to say there's some big rehab process where
I know.
I got on the ground every day and did bird dogs and the McGill Big Three and did all this therapy shit, but I just did not do a thing. I didn't lift weights because Brian just said don't lift weights for X amount of time. And the animal cage, because I was sponsored by Animal at the time, that was coming up in March, and they asked me like, "Do you think you could lift?" I was like, "Fuck, probably not." So like, I got under the bar with one plate, and this was like in January. So this was 5 months after the injury or so, probably four
Hmm.
months, and it didn't hurt. So the next week I went two plates, which was like two reps, so like 275. Within 5 weeks, I was squatting 650 again without pain. And then I don't know how I was able to get my strength back that quick, but I did. And then ever since then, it was like I was healed. Like just the time off, I went to the cage, squatted 750, and I was only 35 pounds off my best. And
Wow.
then, 4 or 5 months later, after working with Chad Wesley Smith, was the first ever actual powerlifting coach I had,
Hmm.
squatted 800 for the first time. So like, in not even a year, I went from like, shit, I'm done forever. I can't walk to big PR squat.
So something I see really often in especially high performers
Mm-hmm.
is whenever they get hurt or whenever something bad happens, it immediately goes to self-destructive behavior. Was that something that you fell into after that?
So back then, I don't really, I would say no, because
Okay.
so when we look at my career in powerlifting, there's been different levels, right? So back then, I was just like the young kid that could lift, eat whatever he wants. Like I was fat as shit, relatively speaking, but like I was strong. I never was hurt. So like my eating habits didn't change because even when I was healthy, not getting hurt before that back injury, I was eating pizza every night. Like I worked at an Italian restaurant,
Hmm.
so whatever. So I couldn't be like, oh, I just fell off like that. I just went to my normal life without lifting. And then fast forward to this pec injury where I tore the pec. this is after years of like finally getting my shit together outside of the gym.
Everything dialed in. Yeah.
Everything got in, and I had we talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
Like that's where the self-destructive behavior went in because it's like I have that personality type where I need some sort of major goal to
Mhm.
really stay locked in. And I know that like some people be like, oh, that's not healthy. You should just be balanced. Like, the typical stuff we hear, but I'm just not wired that way. I just need something to
Neither.
focus on. Like it could be like a fucking corporate workplace weight loss contest. But like obviously I'm not in that setting, but that's something like that would always like keep me dialed in.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah.
I take a similar approach. I definitely am much more goal oriented. Um, the last couple of years, I've kind of been forced to be more of a process guy because I wasn't able to pick a goal. I wasn't able to power lift, and after the bodybuilding show, I wasn't in a position to do another one. So it's just a
Mhm.
matter of like, okay, I'm just going to train to have fun.
Yeah.
And then to be able to dial into some other type of goal has been kind of hard. But for me, it comes down to I need to get an answer really quickly as to what it is,
Mhm.
right? So if you have a twinge or a tweak or something like that, like I want to know right away what the issue is. And I want to start working toward, I want to make the rehab my job. I want to
Yeah.
turn that into the goal. And as soon as I'm able to do that and I have structure again, mentally
Mhm.
I'm okay. And this comes with a lot of maturity because after I hurt my knee, funny enough, I was working with Chad at the time. It was my second knee surgery because I'd already had the right one done in college. It was my left one. The surgery ended up being like a full, like it was a meniscus surgery. So I had my meniscus removed except for 15%. And they actually shaved down my IT band because it was so fucked up. But what that actually did is it loosened up my lateral hip. So I
Mhm.
couldn't hold any tension laterally. My glute med like didn't do a thing anymore. Because for those who don't know, your glute med and your TFL run together. So as soon as that TFL loosened up, my glute med lost pretty much all of its tension. And my left hip is the one that's been giving me issues since then. So at that point, I was like, I can't lift to get rid of my demons anymore. I need to find something else. And it was at that point where I kind of had an identity shift about, me being an athlete versus me being a coach and a person. And now I don't identify as a lifter anymore. So if I get hurt now or I have any issues, I don't have to have that identity shift that most people have. Like when I had that knee surgery, I was a power. If you said, who are you? I'd be like, I'm a power lifter.
Mhm.
And that's a really tough thing to shake when it comes to an injury. Luckily, like it seems like when you had your back injury, well, you followed the direction. It was just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Just lived your life. And at that point, you had another job. You like, I'm sure not being around a gym helped a lot.
Yeah. So for me during that time period, I already graduated college, but I just went back to take more classes because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with like that stuff. And I worked at where did I work? The restaurant still, Alvaro. It was just like mom and pop. I was working there my whole like childhood up until I was like 26. And then I also worked at a bar at night too, doing security. So I was always busy. So
Right.
like I just didn't, and I still went to Chad's house, Chad Walker, because
Yeah.
that's where I trained back then. And I would just hang out there while they lifted during the day. But other than that, I wasn't around it all the time. I was just on Facebook and YouTube back then, just watching the powerlifting stuff.
That was tough for me. Still coaching and not being able to train was really hard.
I
Um,
didn't coach yet, so that was cool.
yeah, probably helped. But yeah, the advice that I would give to the person asking this question is make the rehab your job, treat it the same way you would treat coaching, or treat training, excuse me, and find purpose within the day-to-day tasks because you can get really, really refined in your approach when it comes to rehab. And it can take a lot of your time. So get right back on the horse. And then I would say get back to the exercise that hurt you in the first place as soon as possible.
Yeah, and to expand on that, it's funny because when we talked about the self-destructive behavior and goals and things like that, like obviously my main goal should be coming back from the surgery. This is the
Right.
best. So like everything should be locked in. Like I should be treating this rehab like I'm getting ready for a meet. But I think for me, it was just it's not fun. And I'm not even saying get ready for a meet's fun. Like as you know, that shit can
Yeah.
suck pretty. I mean, just mentally and physically. But like for me, it's like since I'm not in the gym, I hate using the word grinding, but like when we're training regular, we push all the time. With this rehab, it's like it started off, okay, if we can go external with the 5 pound dumbbell, we're good to go. And then like eventually if
Yeah.
you bench a PC pipe, so you don't really break a sweat, you don't really find
There's no
challenge.
suffering.
Yes, but you feel accomplished. Like every second or third week, I find myself doing something and I'm like, holy shit, like I could not even come close to doing that just 10 days ago.
Right.
That's like the joy I find in this, which is pretty cool. But
That's
yeah.
interesting. Um, okay, let's stay on the mental bandwagon here. How do you rebuild mentally after a bad meet?
Oh, I do this so many times in the last 5 years. So for me, it's almost like when I have a bad meet, there's two types of bad meets that I've experienced, right? So let's go to my most recent bad meet that wasn't the American Pro. That was like the Ghost meet
Yeah.
2023, so last year.
Yep.
And that was just training just sucked. Like no matter what I did, it was shitty. So like training was off. That kind of domino affected into almost like self-destructive behaviors. Like everything's like shit or moving like shit. Everything feels like shit. Then my eating went to shit. My recovery went to shit. It was just everything. And so that was like a self-destructive last month or so, right? And then I was like, okay, I'm disgusted with myself, right? So we talked about it, and
Yep.
then I was like, all right, I'm gonna shift gears. I'm gonna do the American Pro. And then I had, I think probably the best like 4 month stretch I've ever had going into a meet. Like
You were rolling.
training, nutrition, like everything was dialed in. Like
Yep.
I couldn't look back at that meet and say I didn't do something well or whatever.
Hmm.
Shitty squat, then the pec tear. So that was more of like, okay, that's like the kick in the ass because it's like I did everything I could. Well, I'm never gonna say it. I didn't do everything I could. We never do that, but I did probably the best I've ever done into a meet, and that's what happened.
Yep.
So we rewind 2 years to the other gross meet, same thing. Like I was training so well. I smoked 804 squat in training. Like I was positive I would just squat the record, right?
Right.
And I didn't. And that whole day just felt off. Yeah, it was just out. I couldn't even call it like a mental barrier. It wasn't like I don't have like performance anxiety or anything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I just peaked wrong, whatever it was. Those are the meets that are worse for me, where it's like I did so much into it where I thought I was going to do well, and then I just didn't do well. So obviously something was missing. So it
Those
goes back to like reevaluation.
those are the hardest ones for sure. When everything goes right until it doesn't, you're like,
Yeah,
okay, what happened here? Like, was there travel involved? Was my hydration off? Was something in my nutrition off? And sometimes you just have bad days.
yeah,
Right? And it just so happens that that bad day was on the day that mattered the most.
yeah.
And you kind of just have to, move on with it. I had Arnold 2016, smoked an 850 reverse band in training. I pulled over 700 in training, benched over 200 kilos in training, and I showed up in the meet, went 5 for 9.
Yeah.
And, at that point, I had uh, taken more extracurriculars than I've ever taken before in my life, and I gave it everything I had,
Mhm.
and I went 5 for 9. And I remember Brian, as soon as I walked off the platform, he looked at me, he kind of grabbed me by the shoulders, like, it's not so fun anymore, is it? And it sounds like he was fucking with me, but that was exactly what I needed to hear at that
Mhm.
time, because he knew that I was trying to take shortcuts,
Yeah.
and it was exactly what I needed to hear. And then, had a few injuries, took was still competing, but not competing at a high level. I tore my quad and like had a few other things. Then roll around to Shell Shock in 21. Yeah, Shell Shock 21. Um, Smoked 826 in training, which was Jeremy Hamilton's record. Was ready to do that. Everything went perfect. Peak went perfect. Uh, Water cut was super easy. I recomped. I was well, like I looked great, felt great, showed up at the meet, tore my hamstring.
I remember that.
And I was like, what the fuck? And it was exactly the same situation. Um, Unfortunately, after that hamstring, I knew I did the post meet, the post mortem, right? It's like what went wrong, and ultimately for me, it was I couldn't train the way I needed to train to actually display the strength that I had because of the hip and knee issues that I was going through, which is what led me to take 2 years off. And that was probably the best decision I could have made for my own mental health because I was just beating my head into a wall, talking about probably 26 weeks in a row of taking one single a week on the squat.
Yeah.
Like that's the most volume I could tolerate. And you're not going to be able to build a base of resilience in your tissues just doing that little volume. Not to mention, you're probably not going to get as strong as you could. But for me, the post meet after a bad one, I try to get back on the horse and get back to training and try to, do the diagnostics, figure out what worked and what didn't. And if you can't figure out what didn't work, just get back to work.
Yeah.
Looking at it as if, and this might play into the next question, but looking as if that meet is the last one you're going to do is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's not actually something that I've had to grapple with until the last couple of years, and I'm 36 years old, right? And I could still be competing, and my goal is to compete at the end of the year again. But after that hamstring tear, I was like, well, actually, I did hybrid 4 months
Yeah.
later. But after that hybrid meet, I was like, did I get as strong as I could? It was actually for all of his faults, Matt Vincent does say some really introspective things sometimes. He said, my goal when I got into training was to find out how strong I could get. At some point, I'm going to have to admit that I found it.
Yeah.
And that's a really it's a deep statement because maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but I got to find out for myself. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to try and get back on the horse. If I could just put the fucking bar on my back, that'd be great.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at too. It's like I don't believe that I have found that.
Yep,
I know we're never really gonna think that, but I really like I'm very self-aware. I'm very like
you are. That's changed as well, though.
yeah. So like introspective with myself is I don't even that's the right terminology for that, but I am. And I know that I could be a little better than I ever was because
Yep.
I just didn't do it. And like, of course we're all probably gonna say that out of like ego, cockiness, but like I know the last 2 or 3 years, like I've had more. And
Mhm.
I just fuck something up like along the way. And yeah. So I figure I'll use this year to really prove that to myself because I will be pissed at myself forever if I don't.
It's one of those things like I think because for us, we grew up and came up in the sport in a time where no one gave a shit about what you were lifting except you.
Mm-hmm.
It will always be a personal pursuit for me. Whether it's an all-time world record or like for me, I really want the Canadian squat record. It's still for me. It's not so I can post it on Instagram. It's for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we did come out at a different time compared to now. So I even think I talked about this a little bit on Table Talk with Dave.
Mhm.
I feel like some people might not even really actually compete if they couldn't post it.
Yep.
And like again, like I think this era, like we'll probably transition to this, but I think this era is very cool in the sense of there's so many more lifters, seeing so much more talent. And I personally think, even though we pretty much just said powerlifting ruined our lives in a funny way, I
Ruined
think
our
it's
bodies at least.
yeah, so great for so many people, man. Like the people that come to my gym, when I really just look back 1 to 3 years, depending on who it is, and see like how far they've come just for this little sport. And these people that I'm talking about, probably 97% of them, I could say, hey, do you know who like John Hack is? And they would say no, because they don't follow all the shit that we see on social media. They just love the sport. They don't even know that there's different powerlifting federations. Like they'll hear about USAPL or something, and they'll just butcher the name like USSCL or some shit.
Yeah,
Just unaware of everything, but they come to the gym every day that they need to. They train hard. They meet new friends. They keep
yeah.
those friendships. They come to these meets. Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's funny because, and I had this conversation with a client maybe 2, 3 days ago. Um, that's not the powerlifting that you see on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
but powerlifting is so much more than, you know, John Hack and all these, big time lifters. It's the person who maybe had low self-confidence, picked up a barbell, realized that they could improve themselves through effort. And then now they associate the gym with the place where they can achieve more for themselves. And then I know for me, like, man, if I didn't pick up a barbell, I wouldn't have gone to university. I wouldn't have gone to grad school. I wouldn't be a strength coach. I wouldn't live the life that I'm living, all because I decided to pick up a piece of metal with some circles on
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I have no idea what I would be doing. Like,
it. It
no
definitely
fucking,
wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. That's for fucking sure.
yeah. Like, just going back to these people, like you said, like they once had low self esteem, all those situations. I could probably just take my member list of like who competes in powerlifting now from my gym, and I could probably give you a great example about every single one of them.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's great. Like,
that's amazing.
you know,
That's amazing. Um, okay, so let's return back. The the question that I kind of wanted to tie into the idea that your next meet might be your last. It's this idea of abundance versus scarcity. And you could look at it a few ways. The way that I think I'd like to hear your point is like, if we look at this with an abundance mindset, we have to view each meet as a stepping stone towards the next, versus a scarcity mindset, meaning this meat might be my last. I have to milk everything out of it as possible. So it's that I'm going to go 6 for 9 and shoot for huge PRs, or I'm going to go 9 for 9 and build to the next one. Where do you think you need to kind of fall within that spectrum?
that's a tough one because you could almost argue both are beneficial.
Yep.
So, like, I'll use, let's just say you have the mindset where you are using this building, you're using the building blocks to get to that big goal. We know that that big goal is always going to go higher. You can hit that goal all you want. You're going to step off the platform, assuming you hit it. You're going to be happy. You're going to go to dinner. You're going to pull out your phone. You're going to go to open powerlifting, see where you're going to fall. Say, I need to get a little higher than that.
Yep.
And then if you go the other end where it's like this might be the last meet, you have to put everything into it. What happens if you fuck up?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's almost like you're just going to go here, come down, and then you don't want to jump back to that other side of the spectrum where it's like I'm just going to take these little jumps, because if you went this way, there's a chance that you probably got pretty close to your goal. You just made 1 to 2 mistakes and
Yep.
failed. So that didn't exactly answer the question, but I feel like the responsible thing for us to tell our lifters would be go to the side where we're just building and having fun,
Mm-hmm.
self when needed, try to get a little better each time. But there's going to be a point if you stick around long enough, you're going to have to jump to the other side,
Yep.
reach those goals. And
Yep.
yeah,
I echo the same thing. It's You have to look at it from the long-term lens of I'm building towards the future. But I like one of the things that I do with my lifters, especially if I'm handling them in person. We have our plan, right? We have our good, better, best scenario in terms of attempts. I will always ask the lifter, what do you want to do?
yeah,
Because ultimately, I want them to have the autonomy to take a shot when they want to take a shot, or to play it conservative when they're not feeling confident. And I think that level of accountability on the lifter always leads to the best results in my experience. And as you get further and further into this, the PRs that you're after will have to be on a perfect day.
Yeah.
I'm of no delusion that when I go to compete again and I want to squat 832, it's going to have to be a perfect day for me to stand up.
Mhm.
So that is taking a shot, right? Um, and will I feel confident? Will I be happy with the meet if I don't squat that? Probably not.
No, you're not. You say it's not going to happen. Like
No.
you don't hit it, and that's your goal. You can just play positive all you want around your friends and stuff, but there's going to be a part of you that like
Yep.
almost hates yourself for not doing it,
It's the
or hates.
competitor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny you say that. Going back to when you handle your lifters, I do the same thing. I kind of give them like a range from
Yep.
the convert. Like, so what do you want? And like me, I'm fortunate enough where I get to a lot of the lifters that compete in my meets, they train at my gym.
Yep.
So even if I'm not with them all the time, I see them enough where like I kind of, even if it's someone I don't really talk to all the time, because we have some people that are different times or they
Right.
just keep themselves. I see enough where like I'm pretty sure I know what the good call would be, but I'll let them pick it. And most of the time it's the men where it's like, okay, they're probably going to miss this lift because
Oh, I'm like 99% accurate on those.
and then the females, they're a little more conservative, but funny enough, it's always when we're conservative with the females, I'm like, fuck, we should have went higher. So it's funny. It's just the pattern I noticed. And like again, like this, the females with the bench press, like that shit can get hard if you try to jump over 11 pounds, depending on the strength of the lifter.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're just like, shit. So they kind of slow down on their second. They're a 100-pound bencher. We have to call 104.9. They're probably not going to get it. And yeah.
You ever play the game? And it's something I do when I go to meets and I'm not coaching a lot of lifters and I get to watch a little bit. I'll play the make or miss based on the setup. I'll like watch the person set up for the lift. I'll be like, miss.
No, I tend to think that. So yeah, I guess kind of don't play that game, but when the mannerisms change
Yes.
from like attempt to attempt, then
Yep.
they're trying to talk themselves into being able to hit the lift.
Yep.
And
That's
again,
exactly what I look at.
I think, yeah,
I'll like watch their opener and then I'll watch their second. And based on how they set up for that third, I'll know like with 99% accuracy whether it's going up or not.
because they beat themselves before they get to the platform.
For sure. Um, okay. This was a question for me, but I think it'd be interesting to hear your take on it now that you are where you are. Would you redo anything with regards to your education, the timeline, or the choices you've made along the way to get to where you are?
In terms of
In terms of your education or in terms of taking on the business risks that you did at the time, would you change anything along the way?
no, definitely not. Because like what I'm doing right now is really cool. Like as cliche as that sounds, like almost I think it was the last podcast you posted with the other couple, you and Olivia,
Yep.
the one I texted you about.
Yeah.
Pretty much started off saying like, yeah, I get to live wherever I want and do whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're living where you wanted to live. I've always not wanted to have like a job, and I feel like I do not have a job. Like I almost feel insulted when someone says like, "Oh, do you have to go to work today?" Oh, he's at work, or I'm like, "I don't fucking work." Like I hang out at a gym.
I
I
tell people I'm unemployed all the time.
Yeah, like it's stupid. And then so yeah, obviously in hindsight, it's like could I have done this better? But like again, I don't like using cliche things. Everyone says, "Oh, it's all about the journey," because we like the end result. We want to
For sure.
accomplish what we want to accomplish. But those setbacks or those things that you do wrong, they teach you to do whatever you're going to do a little better. So, like if it was a straight line up, let's just say in business, you're probably going to stall. If you get hit really hard with something negative, you almost obsess over that so it doesn't happen again. Then here comes to here, then you start going back up. That's kind of how I see it.
I think too, when you factor it in that we're both in positions where we have an influence on others and we
Mhm.
can use our missteps to help those people avoid them, I think that really validates the journey that you've been on. Um, I actually did a video, it's going to come out on Friday on YouTube about the 10 things I would change about my business from when I started. And it got me thinking a lot because for those who don't know, like I did an undergrad, then I went to did two different master's degrees. And then during that time, I was a collegiate strength coach. Then I started competing at a high level in powerlifting. Then I transitioned out of coaching for a while. So like I've been in a weird, like, kind of a workaround scenario of different careers and different career paths. But if I could change it at all in that regard of like going to school and doing, man, I think about the opportunities that I had just by going doing my master's and being a college strength coach. Like I've coached four Super Bowl winners. I've coached guys who played in Major League Baseball. I've coached guys who played, in the CFL. I've coached guys who played Major League Lacrosse and won championships. I've been invited to weddings of athletes that I've coached. Um, I've gotten to train at some of the most amazing facilities all across North America. Uh, I have phone numbers of guys that I used to read in magazines. I've had, and I even mentioned like I've had people that used to mentor me reach out for help. And I wouldn't be in that position if I didn't go through the education and the experience that I did. Are there some things that I wish I did differently on the business side of things? Fuck, absolutely. I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of stupid money on some stupid shit. But overall, like I think about even just the sheer volume of lifting that I've seen in my life, right? You think about 500 student athletes for 5 years, 3 times a week, squatting, benching, and deadlifting, the coach's eye that you develop, the different
Yeah.
strategies that you learn. Um, Having learned from probably close to 50 coaches in person as to how they do things. Right. So I started off I might have started off behind the eight ball in terms of making my business a business, but the toolbox that I had when I actually pulled the trigger on it, oh man, I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's not like you became a coach and had to really learn on the job. I mean, we still always do that,
Yeah, of
but you have
course.
such good background experience before going into it. And then really it's almost like when you started the business, you just had to improve the business and I'm assuming service delivery and things like that.
Yeah, it was just a matter of like finding the systems that worked, and necessity is the mother of invention. Because when I started my business, I was working full time. So I couldn't do anything that took a lot of time. I had to, service at a high level, but in the shortest amount of time possible. So it got me to a position where I had to figure out how to do it because also my business scaled really quickly, especially during COVID, because I started coaching more. I could always coach nutrition, but I never really did it. Then I started putting out more information on nutrition. People started reaching out to me for nutrition. I also did a lot of continuing education and things like that. So that nutrition side of the business really scaled for me. And by the time I quit my full-time job, I had 60 clients.
Yeah.
And now I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I've been able to downgrade and now I only coach 36 because I've launched a mentorship. Actually, I think I have 39 now. I'm trying to keep it under 40. But for me, like it's just been a matter of remembering that, yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes, but those mistakes are now carried over to the lessons that I can teach the people that I work with, whether on the athlete side or on the business side. And to me, that's really fulfilling because I see the successes every day.
Yeah.
It's really fucking cool. Um, what is your favorite type of client to work with?
I don't have one. Like, of course, yeah, of course, it's going to be like, oh, I like the one that does everything like that you say
I
and all
don't.
that. Because, like, it makes it cool because it's almost like, well, shit, what information I'm giving is working because it's it's being done. Like, for example, like I'll always brag about this guy. He was one of my first real success stories. His name's Adam Franston. He came to my house because I used to train people at my house,
Yep.
uh, whatever. The week before my gym opened, he was 300 pounds, out of shape, smoker, all that shit. And then he just stuck with it, was consistent with everything to this day. And he's been as low as 224. He's like 245 with the abs now.
Holy
He's
shit.
about to total probably, if all goes to plan, in 2 months, 1600 at the ghost meet. Like, didn't do, yeah. So, like, but he's like that type where he does what it takes to meet his
Yes.
goals. Like, he travels for work all the time.
Mhm.
He eats the same thing pretty much every day. He's in his car eating with his cooler. Like, everything's there. Like, if he has to go out to eat for breakfast on one of his business trips, he'll text me about how he had to pay $40 for an omelet because he had to do the egg white substitutes and all
I do
that.
that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, just having someone like him is like, look, if you do the work, you're going to see pretty damn good results. But then it's cool to have the person that like struggled with everything, and then they just fix something here, fix something there, and then they start to see results. So, long-winded answer, no favorite client, but it's like what you'd probably model your best one and your worst one are both like awesome to work with.
Yeah, exactly. I would having a client like, I mean, like Joe, right? Joe Milslagle like runs a very successful real estate business. Dude checks every box every day, makes no excuse, and just genuinely just makes it happen. He's great to work with because it's like a science experiment.
Yeah.
Whereas I have other clients who have these like massive mental barriers and a big, a like a huge point of victory for me is, breaking down that wall and reshaping that thought process to a point where they can get out of their own way, and then they start seeing some progress and that snowballs. So like on one end, it's like, here's a science experiment. On the other end, here's this like massive journey of self-discovery. The payoff on both sides is really cool. And that's why whenever coaches come to me and they're like, I want to work with athletes, I'm like, yeah, you probably don't.
No,
Yeah,
because
you don't get
yeah,
the same payoff. Imagine the payoff. Uh, Dude takes his 40 from a 4.5 to a 4.4. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
Or mom learns how to eat well in a sustainable fashion and teaches her kids to do the same.
yeah, trickle down effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we see a lot of that because my gym really has, I would say if I broke down the membership, probably 65% female, and
Oh,
the
wow.
majority are not like 20-year-old chicks that just work out. They're all like, not all, but a lot of them are like the mom type, have careers, bring their kids in the gym, they watch that, like little things like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's huge, man. I love that. You had a couple questions in your box too. What was one of the ones you thought was good?
All right. So,
We'll do two more.
okay, two more. All right. So let's go with the one that has to do with training. So I'll make these two kind of one. So this is a guy who comes to my gym, is working with me, and he kind of falls under that side that does struggle with certain things and like will get on, fall off. But he's always trying to like learn the whys of things.
Okay.
He said for us, how I told you in the beginning, I'd have to like read this so the
That's
sentence
okay.
structure. Um, we know how much nutrition plays a part in training and building muscle. What information would you and I would have liked to know in the past of nutrition when we started training, how important it really was, along with hydration? I
Okay,
mean, I can,
my answer is going to be a lot different than I think you would think. Um, it's an analogy that I've used a number of times, but one of the mistakes I think I made very early on was trying to make my entire life about powerlifting and
Mhm.
about and even when I was doing bodybuilding, it's like it's all about bodybuilding. I make much better progress, as do the people that I work with, when instead of making whatever the goal is, the default operating system, meaning everything revolves around it,
Mhm.
to just being software that runs in the background,
Yeah.
that's when the best results happen. So, do I eat all my meals every day? Absolutely. Do I do my cardio every day, 6 days a week? Absolutely. Do I get my training sessions in and do I train at a high output? Absolutely. Do I think about it outside of the 5 minutes I'm eating my meal, the 2 hours I'm in the gym, or the 30 minutes I'm doing the cardio? Absolutely not. It just happens.
Yeah.
And that, like, I wish I was able to realize that it can be that simple
Mhm.
well earlier.
Well, it really is simple. I mean,
Yep.
like you said, it's software running in the background. So once you get the knowledge and you just make it a habit,
Yep.
that's you know what I mean. So like what I think he's trying to say is he is leading to on like how important nutrition really is to reach the goals.
Oh,
So like it's very important. So like for me, like we've known each other like over 10 years now.
yeah,
Like I was always just pretty fucking fat, like no
me
matter
too.
what I did. And then we stopped doing that, and then things got a lot better.
Yeah.
A lot better, and they look a lot better. Um, and really, when you look at that beginning stages with the resources people have now and the information they seek, like nutrition really is the lowest hanging fruit, I think, for most people,
Yep.
because it's you just do something simple and just keep doing it, and your results are going to be exponentially better than if you just lifted weights and did not pay attention to your nutrition.
I think playing into that same, like, blending the two answers together. I think one mistake that people make is they change their approach way too often. Um,
Yes,
Thinking that they need to be doing more or better rather than just doing good enough for long enough.
that's this guy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Just
Just
yeah.
eat your meal. Like, I haven't, I usually, especially when I'm not trying to either lose fat or gain muscle and I'm just trying to train really hard and recover well, and I don't really care about where my body weight goes or where my body fat goes, I might not change my macros for 6 months.
Mhm.
And I make some of the most amazing progress and I end up dropping body fat, building muscle at the same time because you just give it long enough. And this is where I think I've been a bit on a soapbox about research and how it's very limited in our ability to apply it. Because when you look at the research about weight gain, weight loss, muscle gain, and fat loss, all that stuff together, people say you can't lose weight, you can't lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time. Well, yes, you fucking can. If I'm eating at a maintenance level of calories and maybe I eat a little bit more protein than maybe I'm on that like 1.1, 1.2 grams per pound. And then I train really fucking hard. Are you going to tell me that I'm not going to put on muscle just because I'm not in a surplus? It might not happen as fast. Actually, it definitely will not happen as fast, but it'll happen.
You're 100% correct because the whole I agree with you. The whole research thing is limited and all the biases and stuff like that. But like, let's just use me as an example. Like, we tracked my results with DEXA scans through
Yeah.
all, and like, I was when I lose like 30 pounds, and we still put
Yep.
on some weight issue. And
Yep.
really, like you said, you didn't change your macros for 6 months. My shit didn't change much at all.
I think we dropped you like over the total of like 3 months. I think we might have dropped you 500 calories.
Not even. We were about 3,300 to okay, you're at 600 calories,
Yep.
3,300 to 2,700.
Yeah.
And there are days during that time where we were eating 3,800 calories probably.
Yeah. Like
Just
refeed days
some
and stuff.
days.
Yep.
Yeah. So like I think the problem, not the problem, but the thing people have to recognize during this conversation we're having is they actually have to stick to that plan
Yep.
every day for it to work. Like you can't take 4 out of 7 days at your prescribed calories and then kind of fuck off here and there and
Yep.
expect to see results because it all adds up. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that on the sustainability standpoint, so we'll draw a contrast between me and my wife. Okay. So if you told me, Paul, you're not allowed to have any cheat meals for 6 months, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I would just eat my meals. Um, but Olivia loves having a meal off per week where she can just eat whatever she wants, whatever she's craving. And mentally for her, the way her relationship with food works is she really values that. And even though I don't to the degree that she does, we use it as an opportunity to bond. So if that meal off per week allows us to go out and have a date night and spend some quality time together, if I can build that into someone's nutrition plan, which is absolutely possible, where you have a free meal every week, if that makes it more sustainable, let's do that.
Yep.
If you could make the argument, well, a big bolus of calories is going to spike your blood sugar. You're going to have a higher fasted blood glucose for a number of days. You're going to be less insulin sensitive for a number of days. So fucking what? If that trade off is that you stay on your diet forever,
Mhm.
do you not think you're going to have better results than if you try to restrict yourself too much and end up going completely off the rails?
Because
Absolutely.
that one free meal probably takes away 5 free meals through the week.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm not somebody who can have a treat every day. Even if I factor it into my macros, having a treat every day, just mentally, I can't do it. I've gone through periods where I've tried and it fucks with my head. So I just don't do it.
Does it
Live,
make you want
don't
to
do
eat
that.
more?
Pardon?
So when you have those like treat foods, does it make you want to eat more of
Yeah.
those treat foods? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
wired this way. So like if you told me fit Ben and Jerry's into your macros every day, I would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like I,
I, I probably, I would, I'd be more likely to have more cravings and end up, developing a bad relationship with food than if I just don't eat those foods. Whereas Olivia can absolutely track a treat every day. And it's something she does all of her off season is if she wants a treat, she'll have it. She'll just factor it into her macros. Um, and it's knowing your personality, knowing what suits you best, and running those experiments with yourself. At the end of the day, the big thing is, are you holding yourself accountable with macro tracking? Are you following a plan long enough to know if it works or not for you? And then just being consistent for a really, really long period of time. Another factor here that I don't think gets talked about enough is training hard.
yes, yeah, we kind of talked about that for me
Yep.
because we're looking to do like a recomposition and kind of like what we're talking about now.
Yep.
My problem is I just can't train that hard right now
Yep.
with injury rehab. So like I do like a 4 day workout week or yeah, 4 day training week. 2 days I can push pretty hard on the squat and deadlift days. On my upper body days, it's almost like when we're getting ready for a powerlifting competition, they are less intensive than our scheduled deload days.
Right.
Typically, I mean, maybe not to the extent because I can still push in some of the accessory work, but in terms of workload, it just can't be that much yet.
Yep. So you have to adjust the nutritional approach. Whereas, like for myself, like I can push my training as hard as I fucking want.
Mhm.
And I just monitor my body weight. And if I need more food, I eat more food. And if I need less food, I eat less food. And I just kind of hover at the same body weight for extended periods of time. I just went through like a 12-week period where I was focused on putting on some tissue after our wedding. I went from like 241, it was 253 this morning. Uh, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna back off. But I didn't change any of the foods that I'm eating per se. I just reducing volume and I'm just going along with it. So my advice to this person asking the question is do good enough for long enough and you won't have any worries about that question anymore.
Yes, that's the thing. Doing it for long enough. I think that's the biggest thing without like those self justification days or like yeah,
I just need it. I just needed a day. No,
yeah.
you fucking didn't, fatty.
So you want to do one more question
Yeah, let's
or
do one more question. Then I got some stupid ones for you.
okay? Oh shit. All right. So with the which one would you rather want to address? So I have one top three lessons from opening the gym, which I think we could both kind of relate because you opened up a business,
Yep.
started it, or something about work-life balance.
Let's do work-life balance, but I'm going to pause for 1 second because I have to pee really bad. I feel like a new man. All right, work-life balance. I put out a video about work-life balance recently because it's been kind of something I've been thinking a lot about. And I had a really good conversation with Chad Ikes, actually. And I think it's important to define what we're talking about when we say work-life balance. Because if we're talking about an actual balance, okay, you can have one side higher than the other, but you're still balanced, right? It's when the one side touches the ground and falls off the table, that's when you're really in a bind.
I've heard him talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that aspect. I also don't believe that you can achieve greatness with being balanced. I don't think you can be the best possible version of yourself while being balanced. Because to be the best version of yourself as a whole person, you need to pour into every aspect at one point in time. And while you're pouring into the one aspect, something else has to pull back. You can't go all in on something and then all in on something else and all in something else at the same time. That's two factors. The last factor is what's balanced for me and what's balanced for you is completely different. Easy example, you're a father.
Mhm.
If anything pulled you away from being the best father you could, you would immediately pull back from whatever that was.
Yeah.
Because being a dad is your priority. And it's the word priority that makes all of this pulls everything in because if you prioritize something, you need to deprioritize something else. And as
Mhm.
soon as something is deprioritized, you are not balanced. So I think life exists in seasons. So right now, we moved from Ottawa to Houston. The only thing that we have to do every day, Liv and I, is take care of our dogs, take care of each other, train, and work.
Mhm.
For most people, that's quite unbalanced because we don't have any family here. We don't like go out and party. We don't like do anything social, really. We go on a date every week, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But for us, that's balanced and we're happy. But when we
Yeah.
go back to Ottawa, you bet your ass I'm going to be spending every weekend with my niece and nephew. I'm going to be having lunch with my dad. I'm going to be going out, like going to my mom's place anytime I can because I need to reinvest in those areas of myself that I've pulled back from and deprioritized since we've been here.
Mhm.
So, my idea of work-life balance, number one, like we said before, I don't really feel like I work.
Yeah.
Like I do a lot of stuff, but it's not work per se. So I don't really feel like I'm unbalanced in that regard. I think some people would disagree. Uh, I think I think I disagree with that sometimes, but I think work-life balance is a meme. I think being balanced, I said it the other day, being balanced is a psyop. I think people who preach about balance are very happy being mediocre. And I think people who chase balance end up being unhappy because they're searching for something that they can't have while also being the best versions of themselves.
Yeah. Sums up really good, man. So, like, I agree with everything you said. And just going back to the people that preach about balance. So, here's the thing: if someone tells me, like, oh, you need to be more balanced, I think you should do this, I think you should do that, my first thought, no matter how close you are to me, is like, fuck off. Like, because it's like, first of all, my life, I do what I want. Second of all, you more than likely are only projecting your shit onto other people
Oh,
because,
yes, yes, yes,
like,
yes.
yeah, it could be, and they don't mean it in a bad way, but they
Right.
always have thought about what you should be doing with your life or what you should be prioritizing, who you should be prioritizing. And it's like, look, like, you prioritize what you want to prioritize because chances are you're not prioritizing shit. You're just saying you. So you're just using this fuck, like you said, the buzzword towards other people that are trying to accomplish things because you are not doing it. That's what gets me going. As you can tell by the tone of my voice increasing as I fucking ramble about this. But
No,
like for
I
me,
love it. It's so true. Yeah.
like you mentioned, like I have a daughter, I do. So like I live my life out of like a planner, right? So
Yep.
I am I am divorced, so I don't have full custody of her. So that honestly, like that does help in terms of where I can shift certain days,
Hmm.
like business wise, work wise, whatever. Like we don't work, but the gym, my training, even. So it's almost like when I have my daughter, I know when I'm going to have her, and I work around that. So
Yep.
that's like priority planning time. So this night, this day, we're going to go do this, or we're going here. If I know I'm going to have to go get her at 4 o'clock and do some stuff with her until 8 p.m., I'll make sure I do everything before 4 o'clock. Or if I still have a little bit left, I know that there's going to be a time at the house where I can just hop on the computer for 30 minutes and get it done while she eats dinner or watches TV. Or like just so what I'm getting at is you have to not have to, but or I'm able to just plan things, whether it's her, whether it's my lifting, whether it's the meets I hold, other people's training sessions, communication with people, and then plan around that day or plan around those events for that day. So every day is a little different. So I guess that's how I balance things. But I also feel like you said, you can't really just be everyone's definition of balance because you will not be good at anything.
Yeah.
Even the
And
main part.
there are times too, like I know when you're prepping for a meet, your training will take priority over other things.
Yeah.
But you being a father will still be number one, right? You still need to be a good father. You still need to be a good partner, right? You still need to be a good business owner. And there are time periods when that must shuffle. Like I even look at, my immediate future. Liv just started prep. She's like 15 weeks out. I know that in about 5 weeks, my being a good partner must climb the priority ladder for me because she needs my help.
Yeah.
So what am I doing in other areas of my life to accommodate for that increase in priority? I don't really know yet because as it stands right now, I don't really have to shuffle anything around to make that happen. But there will be a shift in priorities, which means something will deprioritize. And I'm totally okay with that. I also am in a period right now where business is taking up a large portion of my mental bandwidth.
Mhm.
And I haven't really had to deprioritize anything because we moved across the country and took shit off of our plate.
Yeah.
I don't
Funny
have to
that
worry
way.
about taking care of our house anymore. I don't have to worry about, our furnace or our roof or whatever. We have a landlord.
Mhm.
Just call her, So that's that sort of stuff is like, I think people, I think you nailed it when you said the people who preach about balance are just projecting their shit onto you.
Yeah. And chances are they probably mean well, or they have a very biased opinion on what you should be putting your attention on. But like when it comes down to it, it's your life. I mean, like, so the selfish thing for me, right, is my training. Like I really don't think the gym and the coaching is that selfish. It's just what I do.
Yeah.
Everyone does something. That's what I do. So I will have to make trade-offs to training. Like I'm very fortunate where Saturday mornings, that's like that almost non-negotiable training days for me, even now, because so many of my guys live together. The girls all live together. I just like being in the gym during the atmosphere. My mother, she can always be with Peanut. However, if she's like, hey, I can't do it one morning, I could shift things around. I could make it work. I could just bring her to the gym, put her in front of a fucking iPad or something for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it would be convenient, but like I would still figure out a way how to get it done. And like I said, I'm very fortunate where I do have like the family, like my mom, who gets along great with Peanut. I mean, it's
Mhm.
a cool bond they have where I can just go do those things and it's like almost everyone's happy. Like I can still get my shit done. If
Yeah.
I need to switch the schedule up so I see her a little more that week because I have to do something on a certain day, like go to a meet or something. And I do that. And in the end, it all kind of balances itself out organically. And that's kind of the spot I'm in. Could I have like a situation where it was like just me and I had like a terrible relationship with her mom and like we'd be fighting all the time and like can't leave her here, can't like it could, but I'm not in that spot. So like yeah, I have the family, I have the support, and it always works. And that's where it comes together for me in terms of my daughter. And yeah,
So if you're worried about balance, you're a fucking pussy. Just kidding. Um, okay.
and to like just one more thing on the daughter, I don't
Yeah.
really like when people use their kids. This doesn't really pertain to me at all, but like people use their kids and why they didn't do something. So
Oh,
they're like, oh, I can't prioritize the gym, my health, my business, my work, making money because of I got to do this for my kid. So it's like you couldn't figure out your fucking schedule or priorities and figure it out to better your life, which is going to better your kid's life, and blame your kid when she or he is 10 years old on why you're fat and lazy and broke. Like, come on.
shots
Like,
fired.
yeah,
I'm
I
with
would,
you. I
I would,
agree
I would
wholeheartedly.
in that spot. Like, if Olivia is like 13 years old one day and she's like, hey, like, why are you so fat and broke? I'm like, I just had to, I just had to stay in a run of the mill job for you because you held me back. She'd probably be pretty upset, and I wouldn't want that. And the harder you work, the better example you set for your kid, even if you're not there all the time.
Nailed it.
My father and I, like, we never had the best relationship. Like him and my mom got divorced when I was 15, but he was like your, I guess the word would be like type A
Yep.
worker, came from fucking literally China on a boat, no English, studied the dictionary. Still don't have like a huge, great communication thing with him, but I admire how hard he worked. Like, even if we
Sure.
don't like, get along all the time, like, and he did that at the time to better himself. And I think, and my mom too, she worked at the restaurant with my dad. They sold it, got divorced. She went to school, became a teacher, did what she always wanted to do, which was teach at the time, and still does it. Like, I saw that growing up. If I didn't see that, I probably wouldn't have the work ethic I do now. So even if they weren't there all the time when I was a kid, I appreciate what they did because it taught me indirectly on how to be like them
Yeah.
in different ways.
Now, is Peanut on your daughter's birth certificate?
Yes, I'm going to change it. He identifies as Peanut.
All right. So I like to finish podcasts with like really stupid questions. So, and since you've never been on and you've never answered my stupid questions, you get them. Who's your favorite professional wrestler?
Fuck, it changes. So it's always been The Rock by default because he's who I grew up watching. But the current storyline, the guy's a fucking dick. Cody Rhodes, he's got to win WrestleMania and he's going to ruin it. Like, I know you probably don't watch it now like I do, but that's what's going on. And he's playing a good heel. And I just don't really like where the storyline is going. But still, he's my favorite wrestler. Him and Triple H were the guys that I grew up like loving from like age 7 until now, even.
Yeah.
Crazy they're still around. But yeah, all time I have to go there.
Okay. Do you
Chris
prefer
Stratus.
watch? Sorry, go ahead.
Chris Stratus, back from the WWE
Okay. We all
Behemoths.
know we can imagine why. Um, do you prefer watching female UFC or male UFC?
People are gonna get so mad at me, but definitely the male MMA. Because the talent's better. It's been around longer. You know, like I watch it pretty much literally every weekend for the last like 10 years. So women's MMA really wasn't a big thing. So when it started, it was more of like, I don't want to use the word entertaining, and I hate to say skill because like they're all better than anything I could do.
Right.
But you can just tell the discrepancy between like the experience and the skill was so big. It was never that good on the women's side. But now, since it's been around a long time, it's evolved. So really, I don't really have a preference. I like it all, but I think the I like the men's fights better just because a lot of the storylines behind it too. Because like I know it's real fighting, but WWE, the storylines, they mix into every entertainment aspect. So
Yeah. Um, what's the scariest lift you've ever done, either in a meet or in training?
scariest lift was not too long ago. It was when I had to bench the PVC pipe after I had the pec tear. So
Oh, that's not where I
yeah,
thought you were going to go.
yeah, it's really weird. I was sweating. So I was able to get the 1 pound dumbbell, 3 pound dumbbell, and then I was like, all right, let's go to the PVC pipe. And it was, I had to put the little bench block on it, and I
Yep.
couldn't reach my chest. It just got so tight. And then after like multiple times of trying, I finally just committed for it to hit my chest, and it went up. And that was terrifying. And I'm sure the next terrifying thing I do is the next time I bench in a meet. But if we
Yeah.
wanted to like a non-rehab, like coming back, terrifying. Honestly, none of them really. Not to
Yeah.
sound like a hard ass or anything, but I've never really been scared of a lift. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
I've told this story before, but I squatted 750 for a double in my basement by myself during COVID in
Yeah,
an ER rack.
I don't do that shit. I'll wait for my friends to come to the gym.
Yeah. Dude, I really appreciate your time and for doing this to me. It was nice to catch up, pick your brain on some things. I think it's actually the longest podcast I've ever recorded with anyone at CCU. So, I mean,
Oh,
we had a lot to talk about. Is there anything that you would like to promote or, you know, shout out?
no,
No? All
I'm
right.
just kidding.
Well, I'll
Yeah,
have some
so
links to where people can find you in the gym in the show notes and
no, I got something
yeah.
just in case. Yeah, so I own the gym, Showcase Strength and Fitness. It's in Northport. If you're ever in Florida and you want to come visit, or if you live here coincidentally and you don't know it exists, come to the gym. Um, Things I really like to promote are the meets I hold. It's kind of like
Hmm.
the favorite thing I do all the time. March 16th, we're putting on a first responders veterans type meet. It's for charity. Unfortunately, we didn't get the most like the biggest turnout lifter wise, but it looks like we're training to raise about four $3,500 to $4,000 for a local firefighter's family. He has
Awesome.
like cancer, pretty bad story. I kind of got the full details yesterday. And then in June, Showcase Super Classic 4 went ahead and made it a weight class battle meet. So the weight classes all get payouts rather than just the best 3 lifters overall. That way, like in this local meet setting, your like intermediate lifters and novice lifters still have a chance to win at least $100. And
Nice.
then, damn, a whole lot of meets. August first weekend, I'm doing a all youth meet, so it'll be probably up to 20 years old, so like
Yep.
teenagers and the day after that the masters meet, so 40 plus, you'll be there soon. and then and then the December meet is the one I hope to see you at, King and Queen
Yep.
of the Platform, which is kind of my goal, to make it the big meet to attract at least a flight of top end lifters to share the platform with the typical local meet crowd.
So I'll be with the typical local meet crowd, and then you
No,
guys.
no, I'm pretty sure you'll be in flight C. Yeah.
Dude, thank you so
Um,
much for joining. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Talk to you soon.